Francis Scott Key Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby. If personality is an unbroken series of successful gestures, then there was something gorgeous about him, some heightened sensitivity to the promises of life. It was an extraordinary gift for hope, a romantic readiness such as I have never found in any other person, and which it is not likely I shall ever find again. Nick Carraway belongs to a respected, affluent family from a small town in the Midwest. In 1915, he graduated from Yale University, then fought in Europe. After returning from the war to his hometown, he couldn't settle down, and in 1922 headed east to New York to study the bond business. He settled in a suburb. At the back of Long Island Sound, two completely identical peninsulas jut out into the water, separated by a narrow bay, East Egg and West Egg. In West Egg, between two luxurious villas, nestled the house he rented for $80 a month. His second cousin Daisy lives in the more upscale East Egg. She is married to Tom Buchanan. Tom is fabulously wealthy, studied at Yale at the same time as Nick, and even then, Nick found his aggressively flawed manner of behavior quite unsympathetic. Tom began cheating on his wife, even on their honeymoon, and now he doesn't consider it necessary to hide from Nick his affair with Myrtle Wilson, the wife of the owner of a gas station and car repair shop, which is located halfway between West Egg and New York, where the highway runs almost close to the railroad tracks and runs alongside them for a quarter of a mile. Daisy also knows about her husband's infidelities, which torments her. From his first visit to them, Nick was left with the impression that Daisy needed to flee this house immediately. On summer evenings, music sounds at Nick's neighbor's villa. On weekends, his Rolls-Royce turns into a shuttle bus to New York, carrying huge numbers of guests, and a multi-seat Ford shuttles between the villa and the station. On Mondays, 8 servants and a specially hired second gardener spend the whole day removing traces of destruction. Soon Nick receives a formal invitation to a party at Mr. Gatsby's and turns out to be one of the very few invited. People didn't wait for invitations there, they just came. No one in the crowd of guests knows the host closely. Not everyone knows what he looks like. His mysterious, romantic figure arouses keen interest, and speculation multiplies in the crowd. Some claim that Gatsby killed a man, others that he is a bootlegger, the nephew of von Hindenburg and the second cousin of the devil, and that during the war he was a German spy. It is also said that he studied at Oxford. In the crowd of his guests, he is lonely, sober, and reserved. The society that enjoyed Gatsby's hospitality paid him by knowing nothing about him. Nick meets Gatsby almost by chance. Having started a conversation with a man they turned out to be fellow soldiers, he noticed that he was somewhat embarrassed by the position of a guest unfamiliar with the host, and receives in response, "Why, I am Gatsby." After several meetings, Gatsby asks Nick for a favor. Embarrassed, he beats around the bush for a long time, presents a medal from Montenegro, which he was awarded during the war, and his Oxford photo as proof of his respectability. Finally, quite childishly, he says that Jordan Baker will explain his request. Nick had met her at Gatsby's party and had met her at his cousin Daisy's house. Jordan was her friend. The request was simple, to invite Daisy to tea sometime, so that, popping in supposedly by chance, neighborly, Gatsby could see her. Jordan revealed that in the fall of 1917 in Louisville, their hometown with Daisy and Gatsby, then a young lieutenant, loved each other, but were forced to part. He was sent to Europe, and she married Tom Buchanan a year and a half later. But before the wedding dinner, throwing the groom's gift, a pearl necklace worth $350,000, into the trash can. Daisy got drunk as a skunk and clutching some letter. In one hand, and a bottle of Sauterne in the other, begged her friend to refuse the groom on her behalf. However, they put her in a cold bath, gave her smelling salts, put the necklace around her neck, and she was married as sweet as can be. The meeting took place. Daisy saw his house. This was very important to Gatsby. The festivities at the villa ceased, and Gatsby replaced all the servants with others who know how to keep their mouths shut. Because Daisy began to visit him often, Gatsby also met Tom, who showed active disapproval of him, his house, his guests, and became interested in the source of his income, which was certainly dubious. One day after lunch at Tom and Daisy's, Nick, Jordan, and Gatsby go with the hosts to New York for entertainment. It is clear to everyone that Tom and Gatsby have entered into a decisive battle for Daisy. At the same time, Tom, Nick, and Jordan ride in Gatsby's cream-colored Rolls-Royce, and he himself with Daisy in Tom's dark blue Ford. Halfway there, Tom stops to refuel at Wilson's. He announces that he intends to leave forever and take his wife away. He suspected something was wrong, but does not associate her infidelities with Tom. Tom becomes frantic, realizing that he could simultaneously lose both his wife and his mistress. In New York, the explanation took place. Gatsby tells Tom that Daisy does not love him and never loved him. It's just that he was poor and she was tired of waiting. In response to this, Tom exposes the source of his income, which is indeed illegal. Bootlegging on a very large scale. Daisy is shocked. She is inclined to stay with Tom, realizing that he has won. On the way back, Tom tells his wife to ride in the cream-colored car with Gatsby. The others follow behind in the lagging dark blue Ford. Approaching the gas station, they see a crowd and the body of Myrtle, who has been hit. From the window, she saw Tom with Jordan, whom she mistook for Daisy, in the large cream-colored car. But her husband locked her in, and she couldn't approach. When the car was returning, Myrtle, freeing herself from under the lock, rushed towards it. Everything happened very quickly. There were practically no witnesses. The car didn't even slow down. Nick learned from Gatsby that Daisy was driving. Until morning, Gatsby stayed under her windows to be there if she needed him. Nick looked in the window. Tom and Daisy were sitting together, as a single unit, spouses or perhaps accomplices, but he didn't have the heart to take away Gatsby's last hope. Only at 4 in the morning did Nick hear a taxi arrive with Gatsby. Nick didn't want to leave him alone, and since Gatsby wanted to talk about Daisy that morning, and only about Daisy, it was then that Nick learned the strange story of his youth and his love. James Gatz, that was his real name. He had changed it at 17 when he saw Dan Cody's yacht and warned Dan about the approaching storm. His parents were simple farmers. In his dreams, he never acknowledged them as his parents. He invented J. Gatsby in full accordance with the tastes and concepts of a 17-year-old boy, and remained faithful to this fiction until the very end. He learned about women early and, spoiled by them, learned to despise them. Confusion constantly reigned in his soul. He believed in the unreality of the real, that the world rested firmly and securely on the wings of a fairy. When he, rising in the oars, looked up at the white hull of Cody's yacht, it seemed to him that it embodied all that was beautiful and wonderful in the world. Dan Cody, a millionaire who had made his fortune on silver mines in Nevada and operations with Montana Oil, took him on the yacht, first as a steward. Then he became a senior assistant, captain, secretary. They sailed around the continent for 5 years. Then Dan died. He didn't receive a cent from the inheritance of $25,000 that Dan left him, never understanding the legal intricacies. And he was left with what the unique experience of those 5 years gave him. The abstract scheme of J. Gatsby took flesh and blood and became a man. Daisy was the first society girl in his path. From the first time, she seemed dizzyingly desirable to him. He began to visit her at her house, first in the company of other officers, then alone. He had never seen such a beautiful house, but he well understood that he was not entitled to be in this house. The military uniform, which served as his invisibility cloak, could fall from his shoulders at any moment, and underneath it he was just a young man without family or money. And therefore, he tried not to waste time. He probably expected to take what he could and leave, but it turned out that he doomed himself to eternal service to the shrine. She disappeared into her rich home, into her rich, overflowing life, and he was left with nothing, except for the strange feeling that they were now husband and wife. With stunning clarity, Gatsby grasped the secret of youth in captivity and under the protection of wealth. His military career was a success. By the end of the war, he was already a major. He was eager to go home, but due to a misunderstanding, he ended up in Oxford. Anyone from the armies of the victorious countries could take a free course at any university in Europe. Daisy's letters showed nervousness and longing. She was young. She wanted to arrange her life now, today. She needed to make a decision, and some force was required for it to come. Love, money, undeniable benefit. Tom arose. Gatsby received the letter in Oxford. Saying goodbye to Gatsby that morning, Nick, already walking away, shouted, "You're worth the whole damn bunch put together." How glad he was later that he said those words. Not hoping for justice, the crazed Wilson came to Tom, learned from him who owned the car, and killed Gatsby, and then himself. 3 people attended the funeral: Nick, Mr. Gatsby's father, and only one of the many guests, although Nick called all the regulars at Gatsby's parties. When he called Daisy, he was told that she and Tom had left and left no address. They were careless creatures, Tom and Daisy. They smashed things and people, and then ran away and hid behind their money, their all-consuming carelessness, or something else that held their union together, leaving others to clean up after them.